Okay. Hello, everybody. Tonight we have a very special guest, my new friend, Robyn. She has graced us with her presence. We're going to talk to her tonight. She's going to give us a little bit of insight into Bigfoot. If anybody has any questions, we've gone live so they can ask the questions.
Yep.
Um, and other than that, let's start. So, Robyn, how did you how did you start? What was how did all this begin with the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot?
Getting a
How
little
did
bit
it
of
come
light in
to you?
here. It started when I was just a kid.
Hmm.
I mean, I literally was 3 and 4 years old. I mean, I can remember even really the youngest I remember was about age 3, 3.5.
Hmm.
And I can remember hearing them talk in my head. And I thought, I didn't know it, not everybody else did that, you know. And then by the time I was 4, I would play outside and they would come out in the tree line and I would see them. We used to go to the end of our road and there was these big dirt hills and we would all go down there and make castles in the dirt, and it was all wooded area
Hmm.
behind it. And so there was 3 or 4 of them that would come out and stand and I'd see them. Like I'd see them physically and that was my normal. So I didn't know that wasn't what everybody else experienced.
Okay.
So I just never knew. And then anywhere I've ever been, they just end up showing up. No, it doesn't matter where I've lived, whether I've been in the city or not. I primarily, as an adult, live out in the woods, but as a kid, at one point we lived in a city, and there was woods around us, even in the city, and they just showed up.
Oh my goodness. So when in the city part, may I ask what city, what that was, what state and
It
city?
was in Flint, Michigan, which is a really, really busy area.
Hmm.
But where we were at, it was a subdivision, and there were woods all the way around it.
Okay.
And that was when I was very small. But then by the time I was 4, we had moved,
Okay.
4 or 5, and there was the wooded area around. But there was, like I said, there was woods where I was at when I was 2 and 3 as well. I mean, there was a river down there, and
Hmm.
they just always showed up. They were always around. I was very surprised to find out that wasn't everybody else's normal.
Right, right. The where do you feel that when they start to talk to you, um, where did they come from? Did they tell you where they came from, or?
I didn't find that out until I was in my 40s, and I was literally out in the woods with them. At that point, they would come up to the house. They'd pound on my window at my bedroom every night about 2 a.m., and I would go out in the woods with them. I was very naive. I didn't have anybody to go to that could offer me advice or what to do in this situation. I wasn't around Bigfoot people back then.
Right.
I had
Same here.
contacted one, yeah, I had contacted one person who was wonderful. And, but at that time, I had just talked to him about the fact that I had seen them before and
Okay.
some experiences that I had. So when I hit my 40s, my early 40s, I had moved to another area. And again, they had shown up and I had contacted him again. But up until then, I didn't have anybody to go to. I didn't have anybody answer questions. And so I was going out in the woods by myself because my house was in the middle of the woods. And I'd go out in my pajamas and my slippers and I'd go sit out on a log or sit on my front porch and they would just come up and they would be walking around. And I finally just said to them, I said, what are you?
Mhm.
And then I said, where did you come from? And they would point to the sky. They said, but we've been here since before you.
Mhm. I can believe that. Did they when you would visit them or they would visit you? How how did you feel? Was it any fear? Did you feel comfortable? Did you?
I've had a couple times. I'm not going to say I've never been afraid
Mhm.
because, everybody's afraid at some point in time. Afraid of them personally, no. The only time that I really was nervous or felt any kind of anxiety
Mhm.
were 2 times. One, if there was one that was not good, You could, the energy, I read energy. That's what I do. I do earth work. I do energy work. And so the energy is different and you can feel it in the energy.
Mhm.
And so that would make me have a lot of anxiety or a little bit fearful. Not them. I've never been afraid to see them. You know, where you get a lot of people that when they see them, that absolutely terrifies them. I've not had that experience. It doesn't bother me to see what they look like at all.
Mhm.
I've gotten toe to toe. I've had one get 5-10 feet from me.
Mm.
That has not scared me. It only scared me when the energy change was such where I could feel the aggression.
Mhm.
And the other times, and this is not, it doesn't matter if it's them or what it is. I'd be out in the woods and they would come up behind me in the middle of the night, like when it was dark out. I have this innate fear of being in the dark and something coming up behind me. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a
Right, it
dog,
doesn't
it could be a cat. That
Mhm.
terrifies me.
Right. I agree.
But of them, no.
It's kind of, yeah, it's creepy. So
Yeah, it is. It bothers me.
so when you picked up the energy of aggression,
Yeah.
how
It was
why
never aggression towards me. It was just, it had, you know how you go around people and you feel like they have a bad vibe about them?
right.
It was more like that. I've never had them. The only time I've ever had any that gave me that aggression or an energy that was aggressive was in Texas. And basically, I was coming between the leader of a clan and some little kids that he was after.
Mhm.
And I put myself between these little kids and him. And he
Okay.
bluff charged me. And
Oh.
when he bluff charged me, any normal human being would have gotten out of there. I probably would have too if it was just myself. But now you're talking about 3 very small children.
Mhm.
And that was my primary concern. And when he did it, he started out in physical form and then he cloaked. So, and you could feel the ground vibrating. And I was next to a palmetto bush that came up to my waist and he leveled the palmetto bush.
Oh, goodness.
Leveled it. There was nothing left. Blew the hair off my shoulder,
Mhm.
which, it was absolutely crazy. And I could feel it before he took off at me
Mhm.
because he had threatened to kill me. He had said if I didn't leave the kids there, he would kill me.
Mm.
And I said, you're not going to kill me. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving the children, obviously. So I didn't.
Okay. Do you know why he wanted to kill you, because he wanted to get to the children?
He wanted the kids is what it was. I went with a friend of mine. He wanted to start a research area there. And I had gone to visit him and help him do that. And we got there in the area he took me to. I said, this is ridiculous. Number one, are you not noticing all the scattered bones from everything they've eaten there? Like, this is literally their dining room table. This is a bad idea. And the kids had seen this old tree stand. So they ran up the tree stand thinking that it would be fun. And they got up there and they could see a bunch of them coming. It was almost like this little horseshoe shaped alcove. And they were coming in through the wood towards these kids. And I couldn't get the kids to come down out of the tree stand because they had seen them coming through the woods towards them. It scared them. I mean, they were little kids. And my friend was like, what's going on? What's going on? And he's standing by his pickup truck. And these were his grandkids.
Mhm.
And I kept telling him, get the kids out of here. And he said, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. And then all of a sudden, everything just went bad really quick. And so I held my ground. And after he tore apart the palmetto bush, I'm joking around with the kids because I can't lose it because the kids are looking to see what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, no, he's just playing. It's fun. Let's come down. We're going to go get ice cream and we're going to have fun. And, it won't be a problem. So the kids came down and my friend is like, now just turned complete white as a ghost. And I said, just go in, start the truck and open the doors. And he's like, well, come on, come on. I said, I'm not going anywhere till these kids are in this truck.
Right.
So he started the truck and the kids went down and ran and got in the truck. And then I backed up to the truck because I wasn't going to turn my back on him and got in. And then as we took off, he ran up behind it and just completely bashed the end of the pickup.
What? The Bigfoot had messed up the truck.
He just hit the back of it. I think there's a slight dent in the back of it. Like, he didn't total it or anything. He just was mad.
Okay.
But he went back to other areas. It was like, I don't know how many hundreds of acres of land this was that he was doing this on. And he went back, and he didn't go back to that area. He went back on that property. And he had problems one other time at there because he called me while he was there, and I had gone back home at the time. I wasn't there in that state anymore. And he's like, all this is going on. And I said, why would you go back? Like, I don't understand why this would even enter your mind. So that was the last time he went there.
That is just crazy. That is
Yeah.
crazy. So you saved the kids, so I'm sure they were grateful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they really didn't realize how bad it was. I mean, they were frightened because of what they saw.
Right.
But I think they were more scared. They were just confused. They didn't know what was going on.
Right. So let me ask you this. With the Bigfoot, let's see, so that might have been, can you remember the year, the incident with the children?
Yeah, it would have been, I think, I want to say 2014, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a while ago.
Okay. I got so many questions for you. I got so many questions.
Go ahead. Fire away.
So much, even though we talk, it's so much. So let me ask you, did after that incident, how did you feel dealing with the Bigfoot? How did you?
I was fine. Like, I've never not had a time they were around.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit weird for me when they're not there because, and that is a problem with people that have a lot of exposure to them. You get used to feeling that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they all of a sudden are not there,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a higher vibration, it's a higher energy level than what we have. So your body gets used to it. And that's why you get a lot of researchers that get sick, because our bodies are not made for that kind of energy and vibration. And so when they're not there, you actually, certain people can go through withdrawals.
Mm-hmm. So
I haven't done it because they're generally around, even if not all of them are there at one time, I still have got quite a few.
Okay. So the amount of, so that would be what we would call the infrasound.
Yeah, and my understanding is that the infrasound, and I'm not a scientist. Hang on one second. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. I thought I have a sick grandchild, and they just sent me a text message. I wanted to make sure that was not it. So
that's for
it's fine.
Is it a boy or a girl?
Actually, I have a little girl and a little boy that are, one is 2.5 months and the other one's like 14 months. Mm-hmm. And they have been really, really sick. And so they had tried to reach me on the phone, and I didn't answer it while we're doing the show. And so I just wanted to make sure if there was a problem or if they were in bad shape, they would have sent me a 911 text. So I was just simply checking. Okay. So I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, guys.
No. The babies come first.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure. No, we call it infrasound. I've been told scientifically that it's not the same infrasound we have, whether it is or not. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but it reacts the same way. And their vibration is higher. Their energy level is higher. So that's actually what happens is if you get a lot of prolonged exposure up close and personal, you have a lot of health issues. I mean, you really can. I know a lot of people that have had anything from tumors to other issues. Same thing from dealing with the ETs, same thing from dealing with the other cryptids. It all happens. I've had friends get sick with it. I've had health problems myself. Whether or not it has anything to do with that, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But you can also, like, I've gone out, if I'm out in the woods and there's a lot of them around, I'll just tell them to pull it back a little bit, and they can. They can't hold it back real long, but they can do it.
Yeah, we're trying to hold it back. We're trying.
Yeah, like kind of bring it back. Well, they have me do healing work on them, and a lot of times it's harder to do it with. It's almost like this little energy wall that they have around it. And so there's been times where I've said, like, you really need to drop it down a little bit, please. You want help.
Right. That is incredible. So Robyn, can you describe, like, can you describe their face? Can you describe the face?
Yeah, I can. But the thing you need to understand is there is no two alike unless
Right.
they are identical twins.
Right.
Okay. Everyone is completely individualized. There are some that will have the same size head as a regular human man or woman. They will have Shadow for one. I mean, and I've been around him since 2009. And excuse me, his head is the same size as a regular human's man. His nose is the same, everything, but his entire face is hair. It's very short hair, but it's hair. The eyelid, the eyebrows, everything. There's hair inside his ears. It's crazy, but it's all short. And then as it goes down his body, it gets a little about 2 or 3 inches longer. But then I've had females that I had one that brought a baby for me to see, and she looked like Cousin It. You know, she did have the flattened nose. Their skin color is different, just like with us. There's Caucasian, there's the darker ones, there's a gray colored, you know, there's albino, but all white ones are not albino.
Right.
Just because they have white hair. Yeah, just because they have white hair doesn't mean they're old. Can that, you know, do the ones that have a black hair, brown hair, red, whatever, get gray colored as they get older? Of course, just like our people do. But they also do have some that are white and are just born that way, but they are not all albinos. They still have like Shadows. His skin color underneath of it is more Caucasian. I have another big male that's around here that's like 10, 12 feet, and he's just massive, but he's got the dark skin complexion, but the white hair.
So when you say massive, is he? I'm assuming he's probably taller than 6 feet. He's probably built like a linebacker.
Yeah, and you know, it's really weird because you see a lot of the males that are big. I mean, really tall, broad-shouldered, but they're not. Yeah, not all of them. Again, I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying some of the ones I've seen are not as thick through the waist, where your females have a wider waist. You know, when Sadie brought the baby to me, I had a very good friend of mine that was really wise and said, if you ever see one, look at the trees around them. So when they're gone, you can go back and measure, you know, like see where their head, what branch their head hit, or the shoulder width. And she was 9.5 feet tall, and her shoulders averaged out about 5 feet. And it was funny because afterwards we went and took a ladder and measured it and put a bandana and tied it around the tree where the top of her head was. And then I stood underneath it. And it was like, oh my God, like I couldn't even believe it. It was just, you know, one of the ones I'm really close to, because I've got 3 or 4 that I'm really close to. And I've known him since he was about 9 foot. And he's 10.5, almost 11 foot now. And yeah, he comes in and looks in the bedroom window. It's a riot. He'll look in at Pat. I'll roll over in bed. And there's this space, and like my window, the top of my window is 10 foot off the ground. And so he's standing there and he's like all crouched down so that his face can get into the window to look in the bedroom. Yeah, it is. And he's sitting there grinning. And I'm like, I'll look over and I'll see this face there. And I just, now I've gotten, because I'm used to it. So I just like wake Pat up and I'm like, you entertain him. Apparently I've already entertained them. It's your turn.
Now that's the one. He is he the one that was messing with the air conditioning unit?
That was doing what?
Was he messing with the air conditioning unit?
Oh, the one that pulled it out of the window?
Right.
I don't know which one pulled that out of the window, because they used to go, there were some females that sat under the window too, but they would go to my bedroom window at night and they'd tap. And I had my bed by the window. And at the time, I didn't have a screen in that window because the cat had ruined it. So I had the window, I would leave it open at night. And they would put their hand in the window, and I'd wake up the next day and I'd have like mud and leaves all in my hair. But then it got really hot in the summer. So I put a window air conditioner in there. And I woke up the next morning. I don't even know how they did it, other than they can do like a trancing on you so you can't wake up, or you won't. And I have no idea. I woke up the next day, the air conditioner unit was out of the window, and I found it out in the middle of the woods. I never put another one back in the window again.
That is too much. That is too much.
Oh my God. They used to do crazy stuff. We had this old shelf. It was a metal shelf that was at this house I lived at before we got there. And it just was outside, and it was up against the back of the garage. And I don't even know what they had that they put on it, plants or something this woman had put there. And I just left it there. It wasn't bothering anything. I went out there one day, they mangled that thing. It looked like somebody just grabbed it with one hand and crushed it. It was like in 20 different directions.
So they just like I guess they thought it was funny.
Yeah, well, they did. And we had decided that since the window air conditioner unit wasn't working, we were going to get a central air unit. And we found somebody that had one that was for sale that was used. So we got it. It took, I don't know how many people to unload this thing out of the truck. And we set it directly behind the house.
Uh-oh.
So that we could have somebody come out and install it. It was just the big part that goes outside.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to have somebody come in and put the adapting pieces in the furnace. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And it sat there for about a month and a half. And I went out there one day and it was just gone. Whoa. And it took like 3 or 4 people to unload it out of the truck. Mm-hmm. And it was gone. And we found it back in the woods. I mean, like, whatever. It wasn't damaged. It was just back there.
Okay, so you can still use it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they just drug it back there. I have no idea why.
That's good. Well, I'm glad you got it back.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, this just happened the other day, and this is so bizarre. In fact, I haven't even had time to send you the pictures yet. Okay. We have, I have a lot of dogs. I've told you that. And I have this double kennel that sits inside my backyard. And the bigger dogs, during the day, I put them out there and that. So when the little dogs, because I have a lot of old dogs too, tiny little dogs that are in the backyard, they're not going to they play with them all. They get along, but they get crunched because the big ones are so big. So I have this one that's a mixed breed named Kira, and Kira loves water. She's obsessed with it. And so I have this old horse trough that's made out of fiberglass, and I put it in the pen and I fill it up, and it goes up to my knees, and I filled it with water, and I had just cleaned it and filled it. And that night when I brought them in, because they don't stay out overnight, and the tank was still full, it was still clean. I thought, okay, good. I went to go take her out like yesterday. I think it was yesterday morning. And there's no water in it. There's 1/8 of an inch of water in the very bottom of it. Oh, no. All this sediment from dirt and sand in it. And there's 2 gargantuan footprints in it. And you can see the toes. So I don't know what they did with all the water other than play in it. Right. But they obviously were standing in it having a good time, because there's footprints. Like you can see the bulbous toe and all the other toes in these prints. Right. And they're inside the tank.
They're inside.
They were inside the water tank.
Oh, so they were getting the water.
All the water's out. Yeah, the water's like maybe now like that deep, and then there's giant footprints in it.
That is crazy. That is crazy. Let me ask you this now: when you bring the dogs in, is that just because they're part of the family, or is that for safety?
Family. I've not had, a lot of people have had problems with them with their animals. And I'll be very honest, I have not had that experience. Do I know people that have? Yes. Mm-hmm. I had one time, there was a feral cat at a place I lived, and somebody had dumped it off at my place. And it came up to the house, and it looked like something had ripped the meat right off its leg. It was just awful. I had to put it down. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if it was them or if a coyote had got it or whatever. And I was so upset over it. I went outside and I was like, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care if you guys are here. You're welcome to stay here. But my animals are like my children. I don't hurt your children. You don't hurt my children. And they have pets. They all have pets. They'll use anything out in the woods as a pet. I have 3 that bring up a cougar up here every now and then, and I'm like, I'm not going to hurt your pets and your animals, so you're not going to hurt mine. And I have never had another problem.
That's good.
They bring stuff for the dogs and toss it over the fence to the dogs all the time. Mm-hmm. And I have too many pigs, and I have had them get out multiple times. And the one they brought him back before, they made little arrows of like sticks that led him all the way to where he was supposed to come back in at.
I remember. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And then they put a little welcome sign out front in front of the garage door so he could come back in. So I've been very lucky. I've not had anything bad happen to my animals from them.
Mm-hmm. So I would take it that that's probably, you're probably dealing with, like as we spoke before, They're obviously they're highly intelligent. They
Yeah.
must be a more peaceful group or clan. They're peaceful.
Yeah.
Mm,
I mean, I've had aggressive ones, but not at
mm,
my property. The only time that I've ever even seen anything somewhat aggressive come to my place, they warned me that he was there. They said it was, they called him a traitor, said he
mm,
wasn't from their clan,
mm,
and they wanted me to go in the house. So I went in the house, and it was a riot because on one side of my property or one side of the yard, all these rocks came flying to the other side.
mm,
And this one was on the other side, and he would throw a rock back, but then they were just pummeling him with rocks.
mm.
And so they ran him off the property.
Oh my goodness.
And like where I'm at now, I've got 3 or 4 clans that come in and out of here,
Hmm.
and I've not had anything aggressive.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I've been really lucky.
Do you we've talked about this, but we'll go ahead and talk about it again so that other people will understand.
Mhm.
Um, what do you feel, or what are the Bigfoots, or what do you feel they are? Yeah.
I asked them, you know, when I, like everybody else, when I was a kid, I thought, because I'm an animal lover,
Mhm,
and here are these things all covered in hair, and I was a little kid at the time, and I knew they were talking to me because they would verbally talk to me as well as mind speak.
mhm,
But because they were covered in hair and I was a small kid, I just thought they were an animal. So I get where people come from with that, but that's so not true.
yeah.
And as I got older and was communicating more with them and watching their behaviors and watching them with their kids, it became apparent to me that these were more human than they were any animal. And
Okay.
finally, and this was well before the DNA study,
Mhm,
I didn't even know Melba Ketchum at the time. And I just finally said to them, I said, you know, what are you? Because people at that point, I was on Facebook and people were just fighting and fighting and fighting over this. And I thought, I'm just going to ask them. I mean, they obviously are going to know what they are. And they pointed to me and they said, we're human like you. And then they pointed to the sky and said, and star people.
mhm. Okay.
Yep. They just went, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then they had this structure in the back of my woods.
Mhm,
And it was a whole wooded area. And it was really bizarre because as wooded as it was, there was one spot where the trees had an opening
mhm,
that you could see right up to the sky. And they put this structure underneath of that at an angle so that
mhm,
it would look upwards going through that opening. And I thought it was the most peculiar structure, but
mhm,
it was at an angle. And I thought, okay. And a person that I knew at the time was an architect, and he said, it looks like a map. He said, I'm going to go into your township and I'm going to get a copy of your plat map. I said, okay. So he went and got the plat map, and we put that plat map and put it over the top of a picture of that structure, and it matched perfectly. Like
mm.
literally, it was, I still can't get over. I have pictures of it. And it was a perfect match, 100%. And the only place it went was straight up and out the opening in the trees.
Mm. That's
And
incredible.
I'm like, you're ratting me out here, guys. Like, you told me showing them all this. I had enough UFO activity. I didn't need more.
Rat me out. So, like we talked before, and I asked you. So it's basically there's of uh, some kind of genetic manipulation between uh, human, animal.
Well, the ETs, I mean, the ETs have done genetic manipulations for years.
Right.
They have. They've created a ton of cryptids. They've dropped them up here. We've had that confirmed by multiple sources that have been abducted.
Mhm.
And we've always known this. This is not, it's something that's not talked about. It's something that is not really, kosher for everybody's belief system.
Mhm.
But it has happened. It's gone on for years. It's going to continue a lot more. And they have consistently done that. I mean, we have dogmen that were created here on Earth. We have dogmen that were created by the government. We have dogmen that were created by the Ebens, admit to creating dogmen, and there's other races that have as well. It's like I have a picture of a lizard man. A lizard man is lizard, human, and ET. Goat man is goat, human, ET.
Right. We have we a few years ago. I think we had a bunch the goat men out here in Maryland State years ago. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if they're all still around now, but we had a lot of them running around at one time.
Yeah.
The Ebens, they have an interesting story, right? Aren't they from what is this?
Sherpo.
Yes, yeah. And
Project Sherpo.
Project
Yeah.
Circle, right? And
And I don't even remember what the letters even stands for. I'd have to really think about it to tell you. But we're the ones that even we named them that.
Yeah, like extraterrestrial, biological, something.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
like that.
And but they, if you read the book that they helped to do, and the one that was written explaining the government program, they talk about creating this hybrid with the head of a dog and the body of a man.
Mm.
But then if you go back in Egyptian times, Anubis, he was here. And then, you know, there's also the ones that the witch doctors have created, you know, so, but those, I think, and I could be wrong on this, so don't quote me because I'm not an expert on this, but, you know, you've got your werewolves, you've got your dogmen, there's all these different things that can create these things. It's not just one simple explanation.
Right. Do you, I know one of the best explanations, like you said, is if they are the genetic manipulation of the ETs.
Yeah, I asked them back in 2000, I think it was 11, because we had some things that went on, and, you know, they are fine with certain ET races. Other ET races are terrified of. And we had ships that had come down, and I wasn't the only witness to this. There was other people there that had come down with these robotic looking Bigfoots, and they were not a regular Bigfoot, they're robots. And they were there basically to catch the regular Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it. And I was floored when I saw this. And like I said, I was not alone. It was not just me seeing it. I had people that were with me at the time, and they saw it as well. And I've talked to many, many contacts that have also witnessed that. And these robotic things, they're just trained killers. That's what they do. And they basically want to catch ours and destroy them. But I had asked them about that because I was like, you know, who brought you here, whatever. And what they told me was that they were here basically to keep an eye on us, not in a bad way, but they were supposed to keep an eye on us and let the ETs know what was going on the planet, and watch the planet, watch us. I mean, and just observe. They were just observers. That's all they were. But they never felt comfortable with it, and they didn't trust the ones that had placed them here, and they have rebelled. They don't do that. That's not what they're about. You know, most of them are very kind-hearted. Are there aggressive ones? 100%. Like, anybody is really foolish to believe they're all good or all bad, because there is nothing that is all good or all bad. And so that is, you know, that was the big thing. And so they don't work with the ETs. That's not their goal. That's not what they do. But, you know, you do have good ones and you have bad ones. The bad ones don't want anything to do with us. I mean, we've given them no reason to want to have anything to do with us. And some of them just don't like us for the sake of not liking us. You know, and then you have the ones that are all right to be around us, but they're cautious because we're generally out there trying to shoot them with guns and hurting their family. They have their own laws, their own culture, their own way of life. They are a people. They're just not our kind of people. They're a type of people. They're an ancient people. And so their ways are not ours. They don't understand our ways. You know, we don't really understand theirs. And the people that do understand it, nobody wants to listen to. So it makes it hard. You know, it's like, and I don't know it all. I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm never going to claim to. I don't believe there are experts in this field. And if you have people that claim to be an expert, those are the people you should not be talking to, because for everything we know, there's 1,000 more questions. And, you know, the other thing too is, yeah, I've had a lot of experiences with them. That doesn't make my experiences any more important than somebody that just managed to walk out in the woods and see a stick structure, because it works all as a collective. They work as a collective. That's something we need to do. You know, we tend to work more for ourselves instead of as a whole. And that's, if nothing else we learn from them, that's what we should be learning, because they work as a collective. And so that's why I always tell everybody, you know, I get people that are like, well, you've had all these experiences. That's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to hear about yours. Well, all I did was walk out in the woods. That's all right. I want to hear about it because it's every bit as important as what I can bring to the table, because we all need to bring it to the table to learn anything.
True, true. That is true. You're right about that. To get all the information together from different eyewitnesses,
Yeah,
compare notes. That's how it should be.
exactly. It is. And this jealousy in this field is ridiculous. It's like, why be jealous? We're all here to learn.
Right. Right. That's the truth.
You know, not tear each other down. Some of us may have certain views. And I had a lovely lady on Facebook the other day. You know, she asked me a question and I answered her. And she said, well, I kind of believe that they're flesh and blood. I was like, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, you know, they're not. I know what I know because I know what they've taught me, what I've witnessed, what my experiences have shown me.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you believe, I respect your thoughts and I respect your right to have those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean they're going to be the same as mine, but I have the utmost respect for you for having them.
Right.
You know, everybody comes to the reality of all of this in their own time when they're supposed to. If somebody's at the mindset that they're strictly flesh and blood and that's what they wholeheartedly believe, they have my blessing. That's perfectly fine. And when they're ready to go to that next step, or if they are ever ready to go to that next step, they will. And if they don't, then that's all that they're ever supposed to know.
That's true.
You know, it doesn't mean that that's what I agree with, but that's okay. I mean, I'm not here to make anybody to believe anything. The only thing I can do is tell my experiences, tell what they taught me, tell me what I've, you know, tell people what I've learned along the way. What they do with that information is entirely up to them.
Okay. That is true. Yeah. All you can do is present the information, and they have to deal with it the best way or how they
Right.
want to do
And
it.
a lot of people, and I've worked with, I mean, and you know this, I work with a lot of people.
Mhm.
And there are people that it's easier for them to believe in that they're only flesh and blood and not multidimensional because it's easier for them to accept.
Right. Right.
And I see nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. That doesn't make them wrong. It just makes it that that's what they're able to deal with.
Okay. Right.
You
That
know,
makes
finding out that the world that we have always perceived it to be has never been that
Mhm.
is a shock. It is. Like I said, I've never known any different. So I kind of come from it at a little bit of a different angle. Doesn't
Mhm.
make me better than anybody. Doesn't make me worse than anybody. It just means that's my experience. But the world that we've been taught has never existed, ever.
Mhm.
It's what we were told it was. It's what we were taught it was. But the reality of the situation is completely different. And it's not what we were always told it was. There's things out there that we've been kept away from, that we've never been told existed.
Right.
And these things are still out there. They're not going away. They're not necessarily there to, you know, maim us and kill us or whatever. But you have to have respect for the fact that we share this planet with other things besides us.
True.
And you have to take that mentality that we are the all-seeing, all-powerful Oz and understand that there's other things out there that are stronger and bigger than us and also have a way of life, and just have a respect for it. Let them live their lives. Let us live our lives. You don't have to kill things you don't understand.
Right. That is true. That is true. Do you think have they ever told you for example we can't why we don't see them, and it sounds kind of gruesome, but why we don't see any of them dead, or we don't find bones, or
We actually do. We actually do. There's kind of a little bit about that. People do find them. There are bones that have been found. There are bodies that have been found. The government normally takes those. People that have any type of that DNA generally gets a knock on their door and it's taken. It doesn't happen often, but they bury their dead. They do funerals. They do bury them. They do a lot of it similar to Native American traditions, not all, but a lot of it.
mm,
But they do bury their dead.
okay.
It's, you know, they really do. And they don't give up their dead easy. If you, like, let's say you were walking around in the woods and you happen to find one that was dead, you need
Mm,
to leave it alone and get the hell out of there because they don't give up their dead easily. I had one that literally within 3 to 4 miles from my home, this was years ago, my son went to go to work and he called me and he said, you aren't going to believe what I saw. And I said, what? And he said, you need to make sure all your guys are okay. And I said, why? He said, because a city road truck just hit one and killed it. And he said, it was in front of me. He said, I've never seen so much blood in my life. And he said, you know, Mom, it's one thing to be at your house and see the footprints and see the hair and see one of them darting through the woods. But he said, to see one laying there that close, he said, you've never seen anything. He said, like, to him, it was just a shock. He said, I knew it wasn't getting back up. And he always carries a sidearm with him. He has a concealed weapons permit. And he's like, I made sure my hand was on that gun because he said that thing was massive. It was huge and it was terrifying to look at. And he said, they wouldn't let anybody stay around. It's not like you got to go up and take a look at it. He said, he drove around it, but he said it was just unbelievable. And they had the government out there and that thing was cleaned up, spotted. I mean, they had power washer stuff out there to clean up the blood. I mean, you would never know that it ever happened, that it had ever happened. And there was no talk of it. It was never in the paper. The county wasn't allowed to report anything. The truck was totaled. You could see where, you could see where they had a totaled truck, but they weren't talking about as far as what had happened with it.
What type of could you remember? Was it a like a county truck or city truck? Like
it's a big county road truck.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, and this was back in Michigan.
Okay, man, that is crazy.
But you normally don't find their bodies. It's very rare. It's generally an accident of some kind that's happened, and that's how you find them. But the government doesn't normally let you have it. I mean, there's, was the guy that killed the two of them. And when Melba did the study, she did get a small amount of flesh. They later recanted and said it was bear, which it was not. That was to cover their own butts. But the bottom line is the sample did test positive to be from a Sasquatch. It was not bear. Was never going to be bear. That was a story they portrayed after they found out that they could have gotten into trouble. But, it's just really difficult. You don't find the bodies. I mean, even if there was one, let's say, that did die on its own, because you get some that move away from the clan or have been kicked out of a clan and they're alone and possibly they were to die, go out in the woods. How many dead bear do you find? How many dead coyotes do you find? It very rarely. Because of your decomposition rate, and then you've got other animals that are going to feed off of it. Nothing gets wasted out there when it dies. But in the case of a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, it's a completely different ballgame because they are a people and their dead are sacred. And so they definitely take care of it.
Okay. I didn't know if they buried them or if the Ebens came and got them or something like that.
No, they absolutely bury them. In fact, they've sent me to several different grave sites to do blessings on their graves.
Oh, okay. Do you think that so they do age, they get old and they pass away like we do?
Yeah. They live predominantly a lot longer than we do.
That's what I was thinking. I was about to ask you.
Yeah. I know some of them, gets really kind of dicey because the ones that we've talked to, and this again goes from multiple reports of people that have had contact with them and talked to them, they talk about living hundreds of years. So, I know people that claim that they had some that got old around 70 or 80, but I think too, they all have the paranormal abilities, every last one of them. And I've talked about this on other shows as well. It's if they choose to use them. Some clans prefer to live strictly as we do on this planet, and they don't do the multi-dimensions and they don't do the paranormal stuff. And I've never been told this. This is just something that I've wondered, is if they're not doing the multi-dimensionals and they're not going through the portals and those kinds of things, is it possible when they just stay in the flesh and blood that they age differently? I don't know. They claim that they live hundreds of years. But again, I know people that said that some of the ones in their clans that did not use their abilities died, 70, 80 years old. But that could be they died from that age due to illness as well. I mean, they get cancer, tooth decay is a big problem. They can get abscesses. Abscesses can go in the bloodstream. But they're not void of illness. They weren't, they can get COVID just like we did.
What? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. They're human side causes that I've had several of them that came up to me. And I mean, have they been COVID tested? No. But they claim that they are susceptible to the same illness as we are.
I didn't know that, because I thought their system, their immunity, like, because they eat wild, so I figured their digestive.
Yeah, I think the ET. Yeah, I think the ET side, I don't know that. I mean, I'm not an ET and I've never asked the ETs. The only thing I ever asked them was if they got COVID. And the one I asked said no. He said they were safe in the dimensions and not being here on Earth. So I would think if you've got some that are going to, and this is just a theory, this doesn't mean I have any proof of it. If they're going through a lot of portals or whatever, maybe they don't get it as easy. I don't know. But I do know that the Sasquatch can get COVID, yes.
That is crazy. But but the digestive system has to be different because they eat wild. They can eat what we can't eat.
Yeah, well, they can cook their food too. I mean, they use fire.
Yeah, you told me.
But they eat primarily more raw, I would think. But I think it's an adaptation. I mean, it's like the dogs. The dogs go out and, or not dogs, but like wolves or whatever, and they eat raw food and their stomach is adapted to it and tolerates it.
Right.
And I think that makes a big difference. So I don't know, but I know that they do eat raw meat all the time. They eat raw food all the time. Fish meat, deer meat, whatever. But they do have the ability to cook as well. I mean, as far as, over fire.
Okay, that's new to me.
And for whatever reason, they keep eating, those little tiny red berries that are toxic.
Yes. I forgot the name.
For anybody out there that can talk to their local Bigfoot, tell them to quit eating the bloody things because it makes them sick.
Right.
I cannot tell you how many I get that are sick on those bloody berries. And they just think they're a regular berry and they go and they eat them and then they get violently ill off of them. They're just as toxic to them as they are the animals and to us.
That is crazy.
I know. It's bizarre.
That is crazy.
Some of their stuff, Pat and I look at each other and we're just like, this is insane. Like, please tell me we're not crazy. And then you talk to other people that experience the same things, or we'll be sitting here and we'll have people at the house and you'll see one walk across the yard or walk up and smack the window or whatever. And we're all like, okay, everybody saw that, right?
So let's see what else, because I have a few other questions. And some of the stuff you and I had talked about before. Do you like with the kids, the children? They grow pretty tall.
Yeah, they grow fast. They grow fast.
Real fast. Like I think it one. I think you said one juvenile, and I think that my first sighting was a juvenile, but I think he was like 7 foot tall. And I think you said they can usually the teenagers you said could be about 6 feet or 7.
Yeah, you see a lot of people that are like, yeah, I saw this one. It's about 6 to 7 foot tall. I mean, I'm not going to say that can't be an adult, but what I will say is this: a lot of the but the adolescents, not the juveniles, the adolescents. So you're talking teenagers, and maybe a 5 footer could be 9, 10 years old. But your adolescents, they get 6 to 7 foot, maybe 8 foot, because most of your adults get much bigger. And your adolescents get actually seen more than a lot of the adults too, because they are more where they throw caution to the wind.
Right. More active.
Yeah, they get into more trouble. Like I said, they don't necessarily cause trouble here, but the antics around here once in a while, like there has been a couple nights of me out in the front yard going, I'm going to beat somebody's hairy butt if you don't get off the roof, or you don't. It's like the typical teenagers.
Right. That is something. Because
Yeah,
they
they've about
do.
destroyed my garage door pushing it in. They want to get in. My garage has kennels in it. And at night, my big dogs go in it, and so do my mini pigs. And they are forever going in the garage and cutting them loose in the middle of the night. And they have almost destroyed my big garage door.
What? Oh no.
Oh yeah. And they're not trying to, I know they're not trying to bust it. Like they're not mangling the whole thing, but they'll go in the bottom of the door and they'll push it into the garage where it bends those wheels that go on the tracks.
Right.
And they'll bend it in there so they can go in that way. And then the next
no.
morning, there's muddy footprints. The dogs are running loose. The pigs are loose, and they're having a field day.
Oh my goodness.
I tried putting security cameras out there, see if I could get them on a security camera. And every time it happened, the security camera was either damaged or all you got was static.
Oh no.
Like, you're jerks.
That's from like the energy, maybe.
Yeah, they do. They can zap them. When we first got these security cameras, I had put them up, one in the backyard, one in the front yard. Not to get hold of them, but I like to watch the deer at night and all the wildlife and stuff.
Right.
They took both of them out at the same time.
What?
Oh, yeah. They weren't even out there with them. And they both went out at the same time.
Oh, my goodness.
It was like.
Both went out at the same time.
Yep.
That is great.
The timestamp on both of them was exactly the same. We called the company and they had us send them back in, and they said, we've never seen anything do this. Like, why would it go out at the same time? And it looks like it fried in the inside of it. I'm like, gee, I can't imagine.
Oh my goodness. There's too much excitement. Too much excitement.
Yeah, that goes on all the time here.
Now you're in Carolina now.
I'm in South Carolina right now and actively working towards going back to Michigan.
Okay. Let's talk about the dogmen. Are they kind of the same? They're the same makeup, correct? They're kind of like with the genetic manipulation.
They are. They're a lot more stoic. We've had a couple of them that have a sense of humor, where the Bigfoot have a really wicked sense of humor. I mean, it's not bad. It's just bizarre sense of humor.
Right.
And, they like to pull pranks and that kind of stuff. The dogmen are a little more stoic. They want to deal with us less. They're curious. They may check out everybody, but they don't want really a whole lot of interaction. Occasionally there are some that do. I mean, we've had a couple that do. We had a dogman pup that was out in the backyard, and he was very anxious, for me to come out and see him, and he let me take his photo, and that was great. And we have one across the driveway who's extremely sweet and kind and has been here as long as we've been here. But they normally, you just don't have a lot of them that really want a lot of that contact.
Right.
They're a different mindset, I think. It doesn't mean there can't be some that are friendly. It doesn't mean there aren't some that are good with people. Like I said, we have my husband had one in Indiana when he lived there that was extremely friendly. She was a sweetheart. I had one in Michigan that was a half-bred of a dogman and a Bigfoot cross. And yeah, they actually do that. And she was lovely. No issue with her. But I've not had a lot of bad experiences with dogmen. The ones that have been around me have been kind. I have gone to other areas where people have had problems with them before, so I'm aware of it. But the ones around me have always been really good.
That's good. That's good. That's great.
But I mean, you get these people that like with the LBL. I mean, the ones that are in the LBL, and I've mind spoke with them before, they're there because they don't want to be around people. They just don't. And unfortunately, you have the people that don't know they're even there. So they go to the LBL to camp or whatever. And that's unfortunate because they don't know the risk when they go. But then you have people that know the risk and go there anyway because they'd rather have that bad experience and say, hey, I got to see one or I got a photo of one than a good experience that will keep giving you experiences for a lifetime. You know, so there's a big difference. You know, you always want positive experiences if you can get them, not the negative. I mean, you get enough negative stuff accidentally. You don't need to go out and search for it just to say you saw them.
Okay, right. That is true. That makes sense. That makes sense. What do you think about the LBL situation?
It's very sad. Number one, the ones that are there and they've banded together because they're stronger together and because they don't like people. They don't want people around. They don't want contact with them. And that, unfortunately, is where they've decided to set up camp. But what has happened is people go there to camp, and a lot of people don't know anything about dogmen or Bigfoot or anything. They're just going there to enjoy their families. And people have died there. It's just really tragic.
Do you think that's the like a vicious group of dogmen?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They go there because they go there to be with other ones that are like them. It's just really sad because, you know, there's been people killed there. There's been families murdered there by these things. And it's because they went into an area that the bad ones are living in. And unfortunately, they don't see, not the people, but the dogmen there that are bad. And even the bad Sasquatch that go there, they have no intention of leaving that area. That's where they've set up house and that's where they're staying. And it's really sad because you get people that aren't even aware that these things exist and they inadvertently by accident go into those areas. But now I know people themselves that have gone there. Oop, I've lost you. Now you're back. I can't tell if we're back on air or not. Hello. Hey.
Hey, I'm sorry. Something, I think the computer went out. We're having a storm.
Okay, do you want to try to do this tomorrow?
Right. What I'm gonna do, let me go ahead. I'll try to once I get the computer restarted, I'm gonna